I made a meme because of you and Pox. Okay, all right. PoE2 content creator podcast. We're not that crazy. No, surely not. Okay, the reveal for Path of Exile 2's early access was a lot to process, and many of you have questions. We'll be answering a lot of them in this news post. Sure to check it out. So basically an FAQ about the Path of Exile 2 early access announcements here. PoE2 will launch in early access at 11 a.m. PST December 6th. Unfortunately, Path of Exile 2 will not be available on Mac OS at the start of early access, but we're keen to add this platform. Okay, so Mac gamers once again are taking an L. Unlucky? Moving on. But to purchase a unique item or div card designed for Path of Exile 2. Yes. So I was right. They are actually adding this. There you go. Divination card design is actually confirmed right there as well. So we got confirmations on Path of Exile 2 unique item sales as well as divination cards are in the game. These are some pretty major confirmations right there. Oh my goodness. Hogs got the video. Path of Exile 2 reveal was so epic it steamed Rod Ferguson. All right, what is it?
The genre of ARPG is starting to mean a lot of different things. Much like Souls-like and roguelike, okay. I wonder if we could normalize Diablo-like for ARPGs that follow the Diablo formula.
This right here was my favorite. Out of all the badass stuff that was showcased, this right here was my favorite.
Dude, my response to this was this. Probably just bad timing to make the tweet. I don't think it's that big of a deal, though. All right, you guys ready for why I'm excited for PoE2 as a D4 player? Let's see if Rob has drunken from the well of Path of Exile and is now a convert.
After playing PoE2 for a few hours already and now seeing the absolute nuke of an announcement yesterday from GG, I'm really excited to jump into PoE. This focus on the end game is just absolutely crazy and fresh and new to me, because coming from the...
Did he just say the focus on in-game is crazy and fresh and new to me? Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Before, after a certain amount of time, there is not that much to do in...
I'm sorry, I have to laugh. I'm sorry, I have to laugh. At a certain point, there's not that much to do.
Diablo 4 anymore.
Do you see Rax's video? No, let's watch that one, shall we? Path of Exile 2 may be the ARPG of the future.
In my opinion, this is one of the strongest announcements I've ever seen in the history of ARPGs. Let's go to Diablo 4. Diablo 4 has different problems. Diablo 4 has almost no barrier to entry. They're great for casual players. It's not complicated and it's not intimidating at all, which is why Diablo 4 sold so well. The problem is it lacks an endgame almost entirely. There truly is nothing to do.
Holy shit, dude. Dude, back to back, saying the same thing. I love how the reaction is the same from literally everyone.
Well, I guess that's not literally true. When you get to the end game, there are actually quite a few activities you could do, but there aren't really any great rewards for doing that.
Man, it gets worse. Nothing to do, no reason to do the things there are to do, and no rewards for doing them. Yeah. Can you guys imagine the Frosty LaRue video we're going to be getting about all the Diablo 4 players like watching Path of Exile? I can see the title of the video already.
Other things. They have made the crafting a lot easier, and they want you to craft a lot more often. No more porting to town, walking to your crafting bench, and then doing stuff and having the items bricked, and you don't know how to fix it, and you don't have any currency, and you're mad. The currency drops much more often.
This is an important point because I think it will also give you the opportunity to learn about the currency. So like now as it stands, when you get currency in PoE 1, you're thinking from a monetary value, which is like, oh, I just got a few Chaos Orbs, I can use that later on to like buy something, or you're like scared to use them because they're worth so much. But in PoE 2, they're going to be giving you, they say if they haven't given you the opportunity to have mini exalts, by time you get to the end of Act 1, then they've made a mistake. So being able to actually actively use your currency as you're going through the acts to progress your gear instead of just either buying gear or you know, crafting it using recipes, etc. Like I think that's a huge additional change that will make it much easier for people to actually learn the game as opposed to just hanging on to currencies. I think that's significantly better. Also, the explanation and breakdown of currencies are so much easier to understand now, and the process of like getting an item finished out is much more like linear and obvious.
So the crafting is going to be easier. It's going to be a major part of the game.
I kind of wish they did some of the skill trees. I kind of wish there's something they could have done to make it a little easier for new players to get into. Okay, so they kind of did, but it's something you might not understand unless you actually played the game. If you did, you'll probably understand what I'm saying. And so in PoE 1, there's a crucial mistake you can make, which is like not focusing on getting life. You need life. And so what they've done in PoE 2 is they put life like basically elsewhere so that you don't, by lack of information, make the mistake of like failing to get life, because you feel kind of pigeonholed into like, okay, you have to have life or else you kind of get shit on. So your tree is a lot of times optimized around like, okay, well, I need to grab this life node and then this life node. So it's a lot of math and like where you need to go, where you want, where you need to go. And the other part is attribute requirements. Okay, well, they changed this in PoE 2, so the travel nodes themselves are actually significantly easier to use because you can just choose the attribute you want. So if there's a skill gem you want to use or something like that, you can just go until you can use that gem because you can just add the attributes you want on your thing without having to actually go somewhere to get that. So you don't have to like mathematically path somewhere to get plus 10 intelligence, because if you don't have it, it breaks your entire fucking build. So a third point that they've done to make the skill tree easier to understand is that jewel sockets are actually placed within the travel nodes themselves. You do not have to go out of your way to get them. And because of this, it's going to be easier. Like, oh, I just happen to have a jewel socket. So you just slot something in there that will make your build better, as opposed to like, is it worth it mathematically now for me to go out of my way to get this jewel socket? They've also completely just removed cluster jewels from the game itself. So I feel like the skill tree is actually vastly easier to understand because of these three concepts. Being easier is not the same as being good for new players nor casuals. Skill tree is still way too big for most people. I think that a core part of what makes Path of Exile good is having a large skill tree. That is a core concept of the game that they can smoothline and make easier to understand. But even though I do agree that PoE 2 is going to have a much larger demographic and should cater more to newer players, I do not think the passive skill tree is one of the portions of the game that we should cut the balls off of in favor of making it baby's first ARPG. I think that's one of the portions where it's like you can kind of understand as you go through. They've smoothed it a bit, but if you're just dog shit and refuse to understand the passive tree, or refuse to spend the time, or refuse to watch videos, or refuse to learn, then guess what? You do not deserve to be able to have an amazing skill tree because you have not invested the time into the skill tree to learn it. I understand it's a game and it should be something enjoyable to learn, and it shouldn't actually feel like a job or feel like a time investment in something, but you should actually be rewarded for your time investment in at least something in the game. And I think the skill tree is one of those things that should absolutely not be catered to people at a completely, below the common equator level. I think we should maintain this one as being difficult.
What they had before was a gigantic, massive tree of 1,000 points with all of the league mechanics that you had to kind of navigate through and spec into. Now they just separated them into different trees, and I believe then they have their general...
Okay, so separating into different trees is actually super nice. Like, do they have the video over here, the passive skill tree? One thing I like about this is, I mentioned this prior, but okay, so let me use this as an example. I'm going to pull this up because I actually think this is a good example. Maybe it's not that great. I think it's a good example, so just bear with me here, okay? This is old school RuneScape. Now, one of the things I love about old school RuneScape is there are mini skills. Now, I don't like doing all of these skills. Some of them I like doing. Some of them I do not like doing. You'll notice rune crafting is very low, as it should be. I think it's a dog shit skill. But some people enjoy that. Now, in old school RuneScape, if I decide I want to work on mining, that doesn't mean that I'm using a total amount of points that I can only position in some of these skills. You'll notice I have both ranged as well as melee maxed out. I can do both of them. Now, in Path of Exile, you don't really typically have this. in Path of Exile 1. You have, I'm going to specialize and focus on like one thing in particular. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be going down the route, and I'm going to become a fire guy using the Righteous Fire build, focusing specifically on lock boxes with these exact scarabs, and you min-max it down to a niche that's more or less all your own, or let's be honest, copied from a YouTube video. But you're very much in that one niche, and maybe you can focus down into 2 other niches by using the different Atlas tree pre-programs you can go here and then you can go there. But you can't, because you worked on one and niched all the way down, you can't just suddenly niche down on all of them. You can't max out all of them. Now, something that I kind of like about this one is all of the different versions. Like you have, like let's say Breach, or you have Delirium or Expedition or something like that. You can do all of them whenever you're in the mood for it. So it's like, okay, maybe I want to put in one of the towers, because the towers where you put this, I put Breach around in this area. So you could do a couple Breach maps and then maybe come back to the Breach area later. Then you go over to your Delirium side, because you're on the map. You can kind of cook what type of maps you want in different areas based upon the towers. And it's okay, this is my Delirium area. I'm going to work on Delirium. And you can progress your Atlas skill tree without taking away from your ability to progress the other things. Wait, is there Syndicate in PoE 2? No, I don't think they showed Betrayal. I think the leagues that we saw pretty much confirmed. There's Expedition, Breach. Help me out here, boys. There's like Ultimatum, which is sort of an ascendancy. It looked like there was Sanctum, Delirium, Ritual, thank you, Ritual, Strongbox, and Essences. Oh yeah, Shrines also, thank you.
If you compare some of the recent Diablo 4 changes to, if you watch this entire thing, the PoE 2 announcement, and you listen to them explain how their progression systems work, an example of a Diablo 4 upgrade is 30% damage. You get this legendary power, it gives you 30% more damage. An example of a Path of Exile buff is now you shoot 2 extra projectiles.
That's such shade. Like, that's the most subtle, like, call out ever. Before the Path of Exile 2 live stream, when we were sitting in the Path of Exile 2 category, twiddling our thumbs, waiting for 45 minutes before it started, I was watching the D4 live stream. We had it in the bottom right corner. And I was curious, knowing that they decided their campfire is an hour before PoE 2. So to be fair, I don't think they knew PoE 2 was going to do theirs an hour after. I think that they probably decided it beforehand. The live stream started with a 10% damage buff to a Barbarian passive. That was like the intro to the Season 7 campfire chat. Seeing that, I have the same reaction every time, which is like, objectively, I like the changes that are being made because they're steps in the right direction, is the meme that people always use. But the marketing decision that is made to drive hype around the seasons almost always are a presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation that goes on for an hour, and each slide shows like a 10% buff to a skill that probably was nerfed before and then buffed again and then nerfed before. It's always tinkering with the numbers. Balance changes aren't even ever brought up in these PoE announcements unless it's like thrown in during a montage, where it's like, hey, hi, I'm Chris Wilson with Grinding Gear Games. In Path of Exile 1's next league, you're going to have 55 new in-game content. Oh, and by the way, after talking about it for an hour and showing footage of all the actual content, then it's like, here's what else is happening. 15 new gems, balance changes for melee, we're reworking this. Like, all of these reworks are thrown into a B-roll montage at the end. They're basically reading us patch notes. And balance changes are sold as actual changes. And it's not necessarily, I'm trying not to send shots at them. I'm just saying, like, the reason that I think people get salty when they're like, oh, everyone's so hyped about PoE, is they know how to present the content that's coming.
The ones from Diablo are only noticeable in the sense that the number goes up.
He has a way of putting it that makes me giggle.
You want to know what I'm going to do right after this video ends? I'm going to buy this supporter pack. I'm going to buy the most expensive one because I want to give Grinding Gear Games $480 more to keep making games.
When you actually believe in the company, that is what happens. Obviously, $30 is the purchase price for Path of Exile 2. The game will actually be free once it is fully completed. At this point, no one has to spend $480. And a lot of people that are doing so are people like myself who have already spent over $1,000 in the game. But the reason for me that I actually believe in the company, I could say it's because I played PoE 1 and all that shit. It's actually not my experience in PoE 1. It's my experience talking to Jonathan. Because when I flew down 3 times to LA to test the game, and while the game looked good, my first test I was like, oh, this is kind of concerning. My second test I was starting to have more faith because they addressed a lot of the things that we were concerned about almost immediately. But in the second flight down there, talking to them, I had an interview segment that I was allowed. I could have brought my camera, shoved it in his face and interviewed him and put it on my YouTube. But I turned off the camera and they said, hey, I just want to talk to you. And he went all the way through his lunch break just talking with me. So I talked to him for about a half hour in which I just blabbed about the game, asked him questions, and we just talked like human to human for a moment. And I came out of that conversation being like, number one, the guy is 0% fake. There's absolutely no persona, no fakeness, no pretending, and most importantly, no PR. He's just talking about the game. Number two, he's passionate. He actually legitimately loves the game he's talking about, so he cares about the product. He's not an outside hire that came from some corp that has 15 different lineages of games that they have history of. It isn't an out. He's in there because he gives a fuck about the game from the start. And then number three, which is even probably arguably more important point, he actually knows the game. Who would have guessed? And I had done other interviews online before, but I never got a chance to off camera sit down and just talk to the guy. And after talking to him, I was just like, okay, there's any concerns I had related to the game, either its development or the company and all that, basically completely evaporated because I could tell the dude's just he's just a real dude. He's 100% a real dude. And after that, that's really when I was like, okay, you know what? I have faith. That will give me actual faith in the company because there's a person that I feel like I can trust as opposed to I'm just kind of randomly trusting this company to make a good product. Here, I'm going to do another straw poll because we got different people in here today. I'm going to pull up a straw poll. Let's see if this mirrors yesterday. Okay, it's kind of a battle. Merc's out in front, Sork secondary, Witch, Monk, Warrior, Ranger. Merc's ahead today. Poor Ranger. Yeah, no one wants to play the Ranger. The reason is people are looking for flashy new stuff. They want to try something. Maybe this isn't going to be what they'll main for 5 years, but they want what they're interested in trying. So it's getting voted on right now. So you're looking for something kind of flashy that has maybe some skills from the Ascendancy that's only locked to that class that you're interested in. Assault rifle in a fantasy game, yes please. I love that he just straight up calls it an automatic shotgun and the assault rifle. In the actual preview of it, it's just constantly calling it that. Mercenary, Sork, Monk, Witch, Warrior, Ranger in that order. So number one with Mercenary. Okay, so this is different than what happened yesterday. Warrior and Ranger seem consistently on the least played down here. Monk was the one that got the most votes yesterday, and then after that was Sork, then Merc. So Monk and Merc were actually flip-flopped yesterday, but otherwise the Warrior and Ranger being on the bottom wasn't exactly in this order as well. I saw this one here. I want to watch this. Path of Exile 2 ADHD version by Lily. I watched a couple of her videos recently. This is a new one. ADHD version of Path of Exile 2.
Of support gems. Charms. What? One-hand, two-hander, gambling. Currency exchange, infinite.
Okay, so it's a banger already. We're 5 seconds into it. I'm already giving it a like.
If you die, your map can no longer be run. Nameless Seer. These are just some of the things that are going to be in PoE 2. You can shoot while moving now. And on the same topic, I think most players are going to opt for WSD. Personally, I don't like WSD.
Yeah, WASD is going to, I think, be a preference. Maybe some people that are used to ARPGs and with mouse moving aren't going to want to go back and try something new. I understand. The thing, though, is with controller as well as WASD, you kind of get not an innate advantage, but it feels better because actually where you're looking matters. You're actually supposed to look in a direction to both cast a skill or block a skill if you're using the shield in particular. And because of that, joystick, from the controller or WASD just seems to be pretty crucially important. Plus, like things like the Ranger, where you have 30% less movement penalty, like you can actually kind of walk and shoot almost like it's an Xbox arcade game back in the day. So I would assume that WASD or controller are going to be a pretty heavy preference.
When I played it in PoE 2, it actually feels very good and smooth. There's over 400 monster types in early access, so don't expect to see Tomb Lord 45 times.
No Tomb Lord in PoE 2. I'm uninstalling and refunding all of my packs, to be fair. I was promised Tomb Lord. I should be delivered upon Tomb Lord.
The Atlas will have biomes with specific encounters / items / unique maps.
I wonder if that means the unique maps are based upon where you're pathing. So like if I wanted to do an XP speedrun, I was trying to get as much XP as possible. If I'm trying to get Tainted Paradise, I need to be on the side of the map that has a beach, for instance, in order to get Untainted Paradise. Meaning the information we have on the map might tell me where to go in order to try to target certain unique maps, as opposed to just random RNG, like you're trying to go to the biomes to actually get them. It's not like Untainted Paradise is suddenly going to be in the middle of a mountain. So that's what I'm thinking. If you're trying to target certain unique maps, you're probably trying to get to like certain biomes. That was a good video. All right, thumbed it up. I'm going to show you something here, okay?
Using Answered Call, you can summon and set...
Okay, look at this. So the only thing I know about this is watch the monkey, okay? He summons the monkey and then it just runs away and does nothing. This is all we know so far.
Ancestral spirits linked to each of your totems.
There he goes. He runs into a wall and that's it. That's all I've seen from that ascendancy. And then the other ascendancy is an oh shit button, or the other ability so far is an oh shit button.
You can encase your body in a protective layer that absorbs...
Which is like, oh no, I'm bad, let me hit this button. So far what I've seen is you summon a monkey that runs away from you, and then you become encased in jade, and it's just an oh shit button. In which you're probably after that then going to get one shot because you're going to get surrounded. This is like Zonya's hourglassing in the middle of a team fight when your whole team's dead literally anyway. Like, this is how this feels to me. On the other hand, this one does look good.
It's all about hitting big. With Earthbreaker, every slam is a chance to create an aftershock. With Crushing Impacts, every hit becomes a crushing blow.
So we have a couple cool things on this one, right?
With Earthbreaker, every
slam skills, which is obviously what we're going to be using, have a chance to cause aftershocks. So more damage. Aftershock seems good. That's all. Like the first one's already cool looking.
With Crushing Impacts, every hit becomes a crushing blow.
And then this works absolutely fantastic if I'm doing the double fisting mace build. So like I have two-handed Macerinos, double fisting with crushing blows. I'm running stun build up on my skill tree. I've got the gem that increases my small radius, and I have even more stuns. Like that right there makes me think, all right, now, you know, we got something. We're cooking a little bit of something here. And then again, 40% more damage against heavy stun. So what do we have here? We have, again, what seems like a pretty good combo of Aftershock, 20% chance off slams. We're going to be using slams anyway. In the combination of the double fisting two-handed maces, we're forehand fisting here. So we're absolutely slamming. Then we have crushing hits, so it's staggering him even more. And then he's staggered. And like General Grievous, we reach into our collection and we get some more fine additions. And we pull out 2 more double-handed axes this time. And then we do our axe slapping, with is for the real DPS. So that seems like, to me, when I see this, I'm like, okay, now we're cooking. Like, now we actually got some nodes here that make me interested in this class. So that looks good. Like, okay, so this one, we're stunning people. We're more damage. It's a multiplier. And then I look back at this one, and it's like, you know what I do on the other one? I literally am so bad, I have to have a panic button that makes it where I don't take damage, and I just stand there. Like, become a statue or decapitate the enemies. Which one are you guys picking?
Using Answered Call, you can summon ancestral spirits linked to each of your totems.
What's the monkey do, though? He pounded his chest and then ran away. I need to know what the monkey does. Look, if the monkey does a roar that makes me do 100% more damage with totems, I mean, he's cooking. But for all I know, this monkey just screamed in pain and ran away. Give me some better footage, please. Please, I want to know what the monkey does. I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. If you're going to play Ranger on the launch of this game, you have to be the most boring person on the planet. You're going to play the class that's a Bo Andy that basically is the same class we've already seen. There's no way I'm playing Ranger on launch. I'm not saying it's the wrong choice. I'm saying it's the boring one. Okay, to be fair, maybe that only applies to Deadeye. I feel like Pathfinder does actually have an argument. Viper Strike of the Mamba is one of the funnest builds ever. Flasks definitely are good, like being able to throw poisonous concoctions. It looks like it's tied to Pathfinder this time. Pathfinder could actually, that could actually be kind of fun. And that right there is the reason to play the class. The most damaging poison on enemies you kill is spread to other enemies within 1.5 meters. That one's also cool. I feel like they stacked all of the cool ones in Pathfinder. The Ranger at least doesn't have a yelling monkey that looks like it does nothing. Well, at least it's yelling. Now this one, I feel like the light side monk might actually be sleeper. This doubles your energy shield and is also a skill which then can be support gem modified. So what if you can do like potency and increase the percentage this does? So instead of 200% energy shield, you get like 400% energy shield. What if you can intensify this? You know how in Star Wars, like intensify the forward firing power? What if you can do that? What if you can pull the shields from the rear of the ship and put them in the front? This actually could be disgusting. Also, I do not believe this is anything but a shot of the D4. This one might be the most, like the most one that I think is either going to be dog shit or completely overpowered. That right there is the reason. Mana Leech is instant. Now, if you remember from the Mind Over Matter that they showed us, they changed the way Mind Over Matter works, which is now Mind Over Matter makes all damage come from mana instead of HP. All of your damage now goes from mana. It doesn't split it like it did previously. It pulls it all from mana. However, it regenerates more slowly. If you don't need regeneration because your leech is instant, that basically turns into instant leech on HP, and you can stack more mana, so you'll have a fuckload of it. That right there, did you see that? It applies your energy shield as well. So you can't regenerate the energy shield, but you can leech it. So you're insta-leeching both energy shield, which you stack over the top of the mana, and the mana also is your HP. So you're popping the fuck off. I mean, this just sounds like I die to a physical slam. This feels like the one that works with anything. It's just raw, good, just good ascendancies for everything. 3 additional skill slots right away. Pog. Maximum resistances, and you have more skill slots anyway. Again, Pog. Which, by the way, that skill gives you 5% more, basically max res, because if you look at this, it's 3 per blue support, 3 per support, 3 per green. So if you can have 15 more, because there's 3 new skill spots, there's 5 support spots for each one of those. 3 times 5, what is that quickly? D4 brain, that's 15, right? That seems really good. Attribute requirements of gem without your highest attribute. I feel like if you're doing Giant's Bane, it might actually be kind of good for this, because so the reason is you in order to use weapons like the two-handed weapons like the swords, axe, etc., it has double the requirement. Well, if you're having to use all of these different gems, like you want to do support gem, blue one, green one, whatever have you, then you can't really afford to not stack the one stat you're going to need for like two-handed mace. Like you need a shitload of strength to hold these, right? So because of this, then if you are stacking all of that strength that you need in order to use the two-handers, now all of the gems you're going to be completely usable because you had to stack so much of the strength to use the two-hander. So this feels like it could pseudo have some like perceived value across the board as a melee class. So you might think mercenary, you know, he's using a bow and all, he's using a crossbow, but like I actually think the mercenary could be really good as a melee class. And then obviously that's just disgusting. We haven't really seen quality talked about on gyms. In my playtime, I never saw a gym cutter's prisons. I'm not really sure how you quality the gyms. Obviously labs no longer in the game, so that might make it more difficult to quality stuff. We don't know how much quality of the gyms affected, at least I don't that I've seen yet. So the quality could be really good.
So far, we've only been showing you footage from the campaign, but some people would argue that the end game is where the game truly begins. Something that happens almost every time a new action RPG launches is people saying, there isn't enough in-game content.
Nah, that's never happened. I've personally, I've never seen that happen in an ARPG. I don't know what he's talking about. PoE 2 is good, but what about the reused content? I don't really understand this argument, because I think a lot of people argue that not only were they disappointed in D4 because it wasn't like D2, but to literally copy D2 and do what they do. I don't think when you have something good, the concept is to completely depart from what is good and make something totally different. I'm not asking for Path of Exile to make an MMORPG or a survival game. I want them to make Path of Exile again, but better. So when I see things like, Path of Exile 2 is reusing content, I just think, good. Did we not just roast Blizzard for saying, why didn't you guys make Diablo 2 again? Like, we literally just made this argument to that one. So why is it a problem now? It's not. That's what we wanted. When I saw this, all I thought was, 07 in chat for Blight. It was an honor. It was an honor serving with you, gents. Too many theories without adequate information? Well, brother, it's called being drip-fed. A starving man does not say, I don't have enough food, so I'm not going to eat what's available. A starving man gobbles up the food in front of him. I am a starving man. I'm starving for Path of Exile 2 content, so I'm going to rewatch the same live stream for 15 days in a row until this game's out, okay? Welcome. Okay, boys, 24th, we will be having the interview with Jonathan Rogers. Boom! Make sure you're here for this 9 p.m. CET. I think that's noon PST, otherwise known as 3 p.m. EST. On the 24th about PoE 2. The plan is to go live every day on this channel at noon PST, so if you're interested in watching Path of Exile content, talking about the latest news, theory crafting, and all this shit, leading up to the launch of the game, that will be here on this channel. Appreciate y'all being here. Cheers, everybody.